This is in response to Dr. Paul Krugman's article in the New York Times on Friday, January 22nd, 2016, How Change Happens. Now, the gist of all this is that you have to have some what we would call real-world pragmatism as to how you make change happen. But he goes on to start about how the mainstream media basically likes to have this equivalency, this false equivalency, that those who are on the far left are just as bad as those who are on the far right. And he aptly points out that no, that's not even remotely close to being true, because the Koch brothers on the right are not nearly, are 10 times as bad, 100 times as bad, 1,000 times as bad as what you might consider something on the left. And he uses the example Human Rights Campaign. And of course, Ted Cruz, is not the equivalent of Bernie Sanders. And then when centrists talk about what really is, where the center is, they go all over the place trying to indicate that what their position is not what the current president's is in terms of what Obama's positions are. And that there seems to be a consensus on, let's just say, some on the far right and some on the far left who actually have the delusional belief that all Americans support, radical policies. And that's not even remotely close to being true. And of course, I've had some experience with this as I've had a few discussions with some of my sisters and brothers, on the far left, strong backers of Bernie, very grateful that they're strong backers of him, want them to continue to be strong backers of him. But the things that he's advocating for, which I agree with, will be astronomically hard to enact if he were to become president. And the hope would be if he could enact just as much, and this is my hope, if he was elected, that he could act just as much as Obama did. That would be a very successful presidency. And of course, that it has nothing, isn't even remotely close to what his lofty rhetoric is talking about right now. So we don't really have a lot of people who actually think that all Americans support some type of radical policies. And on the left, again, what you're talking about is the lofty ideas that Bernie has right now, and what would happen if he were to be elected with those lofty ideas, as opposed to what happened to Obama, who had also had a lot of lofty ideas. Obama got elected, and what did he start to do? He started to be rational, and he had to adapt. He had to make changes. He had to get what he could get. And so the Affordable Care Act isn't what he actually wanted, it's what he could actually get, which is a heck of a lot more than nothing. And of course, that's what Bernie would have to do if he were to be elected. He would not be able to remotely close come to get the types of things that he's advocating right now. And of course, Dr. Krugman aptly points out that if you go back to FDR, who was a very, very shrewd politician, he could get what he could get. He had to deal with racist, white, Southern Democrats and had to make compromises so that he could get Social Security passed. And one of those compromises is that it didn't say so necessarily in the wording of the document, but almost all blacks were basically going to be excluded because the Southern Democrats would not have voted for that in terms of Social Security. So these are the types of compromises that you have to make when you become a president of the United States. That idealism, is not the same as real world pragmatism. And for me, today's article was, again, a shot at Bernie Sanders, not himself, but in terms of all of the people that back him. And like I said, I've had to deal with a little bit in a few discussions about the ideals of Bernie Sanders. But the practicality is that Obama got thrown in with a wave election. I believe he had 55% of the vote, which is unprecedented in modern times. And he was fought tooth and nail, not from day one, but from before day one. And his accomplishments, even though those on the left, feel they haven't been enough, have been a tremendous accomplishments in terms of what he did get, in terms of what his competition was, and that this will go down as a very, very successful presidency. And that, again, these lofty ideals are great, but, who's going to work, who's going to have to go in there and go in and fight dirty day in and day out to get even remotely close to some of those lofty ideas, and the politics that are going to go on, the back trading that's going to go on, the backstabbing that's going to go on, to get some of these. I believe he's clearly indicating that Hillary is ready for that fight and Bernie is not.